All right.
Yes, and we are live. I'm here with my new friend Martin. How are you doing?
I am very well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you finally. And you told me it's like 9 p.m. where you are. So where are you?
I am literally at the edge of the European continent in the north. So it's kind of like if you look at it, I would be in North Alaska or somewhere in Labrador, northern Canada territory. So I'm
Oh,
really, really, really far up north
oh,
in
wow.
Norway.
Oh, but it looks so warm in your apartment there. Is that your real
That's
backdrop?
yeah, it is, and it's been really mild. We are because of the Atlantic stream, it doesn't get too cold here.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a very dark place in the winter, but we're just about plus minus freezing temperatures right now.
Hovering around zero.
Yeah,
I'm in Montreal, right? Quebec, Canada.
yeah.
So it's cold here.
I think it's colder where
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
than where it is where I am. Yeah,
Yeah,
but it
this
looks very green and light.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, this winter's been exceptionally easy. It's been pretty easy so far. Touch wood, I think it's gonna hit us in March, but anyway. So enough about the weather, but nice to meet you. And I make a special effort not to get to know my guests before I talk to them because it's more fun discovering on the fly. So I'd
Yeah,
like to ask you to go way back to childhood, talk about the family in terms of faith, philosophy, practice, spirituality, if there was something or if it was changing all the time or if there was nothing.
yeah,
It's always
yeah,
interesting. And then how did you decide to follow this path or that path and all the bumps
yeah.
along the road to get you to where you are today? And then we'll talk about today, okay?
Yeah, all right. So, I was raised Catholic.
Oh,
That's just in Germany where I grew up in. You're either like in that time that I grew up with, you're either Protestant or Catholic, and a lot of I would say in my region, it's pretty much or it has been half half. So I was raised Catholic, but not really faithful though. Just kind of like that
culturally,
was you just went into to or through the
sacraments.
religious education and the sacraments, and so my communion, and I didn't follow up all the steps, but that was where I grew up in, and we went to church on Christmas pretty much. And in the time that I was in these classes as a young kid, you have to go to church on Sundays. It's kind of part of that. But after that, I would say it was explicitly Christmas only, and my parents aren't really very religious at all. It's just like that's part of the societal
Culture.
process. Yeah. And so, I would say it's been a good experience in that sense that I had at least some knowledge of some kind of faith or spiritual direction. And, the second question you asked, afterwards is how did I pursue which path did I choose, later at life? And I would say I stumbled into the shamanistic or more primitive way of spirituality through shamanic journeying workshops that I attended. And that was just a coincidence. I just did that because a friend of mine had recommended to go to this workshop and to this um, yeah, just experience in a way. And so from there, it all unfolded back into um, opening up to, for me at least, these problems that I had with the church that were keeping me from kind of like accepting a higher consciousness or just this that God for me, God and Jesus were really heavily influenced through all the things that I saw in the church and things that I didn't really like. So I had to do a lot of work to peel that away to get to my understanding of um, what is God for me and Jesus Christ as highest consciousness for me that I connect to through that in that sense. I don't know. The Course in Miracles maybe helps to just describe that that was for me a very Christian approach that I was able to connect to with all the other directions and spiritual um, practices that I experienced over time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, we're gonna dig into that deeply, but first I just like to polish off the biographical stuff. Just a few follow-up questions, if you don't mind, about the
Yeah,
siblings. How many siblings do you have, and what, did any of them end up getting serious about faith or philosophy? And did your parents just, you know, did they ever get excited about any sort of faith or philosophy, or they just were happy with their, Christmas and Easter Catholicism?
I would say I'm the exception in
Uh-huh.
my family
Black sheep, or you're the
to
white sheep? You're the white sheep.
I didn't wanna judge it in any way. I just wanted to say that, if I look around in my whole family, uncles, all the relatives, I
Uh-huh.
would say I'm the exception to the rule. They all just cruise through life, not really spiritual, no yeah,
How many
and
siblings do you have?
I have 1 brother,
Okay, older, younger?
5 years older.
Okay, okay. And what's your ethnic background? You have a very interesting face. Interesting face.
Uh I would s I don't I would say Caucasian probably. So there's,
You don't know?
no
You don't know?
no, I have never done any, DNA tests or
Like, do the family
anything, but
talk about the roots? They don't talk about the roots.
yeah, I think it's pretty much
Oh,
European roots, French, but what and we have to go way back, I think, where there might be some French
oh yeah,
mingling with but I think we're really straight German,
really?
many,
Wow.
many, many generations, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's not the impression I get. What do people say about you? Ethnic. They
They
don't
don't
talk about
really
your
kno
ethnicity?
no.
No one's curious. Like, do you look the same as your father, your brother?
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah.
we look alike, yeah.
Very interesting. So
I don't I
I would have
it
guessed,
is
I
interesting.
would have guessed a bit of Arabic, something, or maybe even some, like Jamaican, the islands, Caribbean islands, something. You have a broad nose, you have a nice nose,
Mhm,
good,
mhm.
solid lips. Like I'm British, got
Yeah,
the thin lips, but
yeah,
yeah. So I think there's a little bit something going on there, maybe that
yeah,
in your family, but. Do the DNA test
yeah,
so that next time we talk, you can tell me.
yeah,
It'd be interesting, but maybe that's just the certain European blend that looks like that. I don't know, but it's not important. It's
yeah,
neither here nor there, but it's just interesting.
yeah.
And what about the love life? Did you find a woman? Are you interested in women?
I am. I don't I am interested, but I have not found on my extensive journeys, and my last relationship has been a long time ago. So
Oh,
it's just like
oh,
I've been following the journey that I'm on and there were women, but it never really coincided in a way where we got into a relationship. So it was just like not in the cards
okay.
yet.
Are you sort of a delicate question, but are you open to hookup culture, or that's disgusting for you?
It's not disgusting. It's just like something that I feel is not really what I'm looking for in a sense. I'm interested in more of a companion than a physical relationship. Even though physical is important to me, but it's not the priority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I know that the circle that you move in, the sort of spiritual circle, there are a lot of women. Because I used to be in the New Age, and
Hmm.
it's dominated by women, and you know. So I think there would be opportunity for you if you're into that sort of thing, which I'm not into. Like I'm not into the loose lifestyle with promiscuity and all that sort of thing. But I know in those circles, there's certainly opportunity. You must have women reaching out to you all the time, no? No?
No, not
No?
really. That I worked in a spa as a sauna
Uh-huh.
or as a sauna person,
Okay.
and I got a question similar to that. Like, you must be like getting numbers all
Uh-huh.
the time, and I
Uh-huh.
was just like, no, that's literally the first time that somebody talked about that
Okay.
to me.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah,
I knew a guy that did massage at a spa and he got a lot of opportunities, but he was with a woman. But so anyway, enough about that, enough about the love life.
yeah, yeah.
I'm always just curious though, but do you want to have kids at one point?
I'm not opposed to it, but it's not.
Top priority.
I don't have to think about it if I'm not with the person. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like I'll just like let it go. It feels like in a way I see myself both going through life without kids and at some point maybe
Okay.
with kids, you know? So
Okay.
yeah.
You're comfortable either way.
Yeah.
Um, so into the actual beliefs now. Um, is it safe to say that you're New Age and that you're a monist, non-dualist, these sorts of things? Like that's usually what I encounter on Podmatch, like these New Age people who believe that
Mm.
separation is illusion. They believe in reincarnation. Is that your camp, or are you different?
Ooh, you're this is difficult to answer in a way
Uh-huh.
because I know what you mean with what you're saying, yet I wouldn't put myself in any kind of these directions because as I mentioned to you before, I work a lot with shamanistic approaches in the terms of understanding my reality and working with people and their journeys that I facilitate to help them understand. But it's just a language that we use in order to understand them and their goals and my goals. And so this is one part, but I also work with a teacher. It's called Pema Chodron. She's a Tibetan nun. And
Oh,
so there is also Ramdas, who is more into Hinduistic, and Eckhart Tolle, which is more of
okay.
a one consciousness kind of guy. So I would say I have a lot of great spiritual teachers, and I listen to what they're saying to help me come to like just to connect with my highest self, with consciousness, with people, and to see. And that is what I would say is the biggest challenge for me, to um see the spark, see the in every person that we are all one. But I'm not saying it's all an illusion. It's real,
Uh,
but it's
uh,
also not,
yeah.
so
It's levels,
yeah.
levels of reality, levels of reality. But what it boils down to, I've talked to hundreds of guests. What it boils down to is there are four ways that I classify people. Forgive me if you don't like classification, but that's what I do. Okay. It's a Western mind. Okay. I boil it down to four worldviews. The first one is very rare. I don't think you're going to find anyone who doesn't believe in anything. It's called nihilism. Okay. But most people will believe in either God or not God, or in my case, both God and not God. So I believe that God is God and that I'm not God, and that you and I are creatures of God, but we're not God. The New Age people, the monists, including Hindus and Buddhists, they believe in God, but they don't believe in not God, right? They believe that this is a manifestation of God, and the actual essence, my essence and your essence, is God's essence, right? So there's only God. So I don't think you're a nihilist. but I don't think you're a monotheist. And I also don't think you're an atheist. The atheist only believes in not God, doesn't believe in God. So I think you're probably a monist. But correct me if I'm wrong, and just talk about those four categories which have to do with belief in God and or not God.
Hmm. Putting me on the spot, I would say I resonate with I am like what you said. I'm an emanation of God. I am part of God, but I am not the all encompassing, you know.
Not
That is
Yeah, not
it,
right
yeah.
now, not right now. Just like my individual finger puppets are not me, but I am the one reality behind each and every one of these little characters that are playing, that I'm doing this theater with. That's the way the East sees what I would call a creature. They don't see it as a creature so much as a manifestation of God, uh, playing God, doing this theater where he manifests in these finite, ignorant, suffering little people or whatever. Um, but the at the end of the day, like with my just like with my finger puppets, I could just shake them off, and I'm not in peril, no matter how scary the drama was that I had going on. This one's killing this one, and that one's raping the other one.
Yeah.
I just shake it all off. I'm God. There's nothing that can harm me. It's the same thing with the Eastern religions. There's absolutely no basis for a real morality. There's only the theater of morality. There's only the theater of danger. There's no real danger. There's no eternal hell. There's no possibility of eternal separation from that ultimate reality. For you, for me, there is. So
Mhm.
that's the big difference.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's always interesting to boil it down to the nuts and bolts and to see,
Yeah.
the differences. I want to give a quick shout out to Rebecca, Bread of Life. She's in the live chat now because we are live. And
Yeah.
Phil Gonzalez and Pi Chris. Hello to you all. So, yeah, what do you think about that bold statement that you don't have morality, you only have the theater of morality because you don't have the possibility of real eternal separation from God. You only have the temporary separation, the illusion of separation.
Hmm. I don't really think about that so much, I would say. I'm very intent on the here and now and how I resist to certain things that happen in my life, how I am feeling. I'm steering myself mostly through the an internal desire to create as much posit positive s positive surroundings in a sense, but also using the negative where, negative experiences, emotions, just to help me see where I hold on to things, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
but if you and I are characters, actors on the stage of life, and we're playing roles, and you're Martin over there, and I'm David over here, and you got your life over there, I got my life over here, and then we meet on the internet on my podcast and we chat. Um, from your perspective, from your worldview perspective, um, you have two options. You can stay in character as Martin, or you can connect with the your higher self, as you call it, God, this God that is manifesting in all these wonderful ways, and you can admit that Martin's just playing a role, and that there's no danger. There's no danger for your higher self, right? It's that lower self that's embroiled in the drama, but your higher self isn't, right? You admit that much?
I don't know. This is I would say that the difficulty for me is that it's so conceptual, that
But isn't it
that
what you believe?
I
Isn't
have
it what you believe? Isn't it what you really actually believe? That you have a higher self and your higher self is my higher self? You do believe that, don't you?
that my higher self, if I have to bring this into words, feels like is the all, is the great spirit,
Yeah.
or the is God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
And what's my higher self if not that? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what do you mean?
Yeah, what I mean is that if you're to take your worldview seriously, you will admit that you, Martin, are just the little finger puppet of God, right? And it's silly. It might be cute, but it's just silly play. And there's no danger. You're not in danger, right? And you don't need to be worried. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. Whereas if I take my religion seriously, I could end up in hell for all eternity, eternally separated from God. Big difference. Big
Yeah.
difference. So if you're right, I've got nothing to worry about. But if I'm right, you should be worried. You should be working out your salvation with fear and trembling, it, as St. Paul said. So I like to boil it down to, comparing and contrasting my worldview with yours, because it's Catholic verses. In this case, you're into shamanism and all that sort of stuff. And we'll move on from this topic if it's uncomfortable for you. But I think it's important to think about the ultimate reality and the implications of your monist worldview. You know.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the shamanism, you said you learned from Eckhart Tolle and different people. Do they have a creed, a set of doctrines that are infallible, teachings that you can look up, maybe on the internet, maybe there's a website? Do you have a source of authority for the teachings that you subscribe to? As I do, I have a source. I have the Catholic Church.
Hmm.
Do you have something like that?
Mm, I would say there's the most probably the most dogmatic in the sense of scriptures teachings that are strict are is the teachings from the Tibetan nun that I talked about, that
Ah,
Buddhism. There
ah,
is a lot of doctrine in that, and
ah,
I'm having a hard time because I'm not Buddhist, and I'm not
ah,
following that one religion because
ah,
there's so many practices and things and numbers, and so there's a lot of things that I could dive into, and I'm doing my best every time I'm going through the teachings or an audiobook in that sense, or a talk. I'm doing my best to remember and memorize what Pema is talking about, and similar uh to that, I would say that Eckhart Tolle is very non-dogmatic. He just
ah,
tells people and talks a lot about connecting with inner consciousness, with awareness, and being present in the moment. Certain things like that. So I would say there's probably little instructions, dogma, or a manual or an authority that you mentioned that I follow, in the sense that I'm weaving everything into my experience that as helping me the best way in order to be of service. That's what it comes down to. How can I be of service, and how can I be um staying connected with my essence, or not getting caught, and if I have to translate it into something into a not sentence, not to get caught by my ego all the time, to take it too serious, to take the drama that you mentioned not too serious, that
mhm.
it is just, in a sense, my head, my thoughts that are creating narratives, but it's not reality. It is just one way of perceiving reality.
I just met my very first non no, my very first dualist um guest who is a monist. Okay, so he's a monist, but he's a dualist. So most of the Western people, like what I call New Age people, people I meet in Canada, US, they're non-dualist monists. So they just believe in the one mind of God, and they don't believe that we have a reality in these manifestations of God. And then there are dualists who believe that we do, and they sort of have this separation from God, not the way the monotheists do, but in their own conception, they have a certain separation from God, and they use that for devotion, an external devotion. So I was very delighted to meet this young man who's a dualist. He's a monist, but he's a dualist. It was pretty interesting. And then there's another school. A third school is the semi-dualist, to kind of like take the best of both worlds and try to bridge that gap. I don't understand that. I've never met one. Most of the people I meet are non-dualist. So have you thought about these camps? Have you toyed with them? And which camp would you say you belong to?
I'm having a very hard time to defining these things because I don't think about that, you know? So
Uh-huh.
in
Uh-huh.
a way,
You
this
must have
is,
heard this floating around though.
yeah, but it's just for me, this is just a way of trying to put, like, to concretizing something that is ineffable for me, because it's just concepts, it's just things.
Uh-huh.
And if I decide I'm this camp or that camp, or I'm none of those, it's
Uh-huh.
just like all something that is not, it's not, it's just a categorization that I feel is not expressing anything that matters to me, because I don't know, like, I'm
You want to respect the mystery. You want to respect the mystery and keep the mystery a mystery. You don't want to like deflate it, pop the bubble, and or well, you can't. So it's not even a possibility to do that. But you don't want to fall into the delusion of thinking that you've solved the riddle, the mystery of life,
yeah,
right?
it's just a rabbit hole that doesn't end to me. It's just like we can try to find to define, but the thing is that, to me at least, I have a very, or I grew up with a very analytic disposition. And analyzing is always dissecting, it's always taking things apart, and it's not the whole. So therefore, did I train myself, in a sense, to stop doing that, to just like be with whatever is, and not trying to constantly cut things into pieces and putting them into
I'm sorry.
boxes.
I'm sorry to be, bringing you back, traumatizing you, bringing you back to the Western analytical mind, critical thinking, and all that sort of stuff.
It's fine. I'm just trying to explain why this is so difficult for me, because it's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah. We can move off of this topic, but there was one other follow up question I had about this, the dualism, the non-dualism. Um, yeah, I mean, oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about the atheists. I'm sure you've met atheists, okay? They deny that there's a higher power, there's a God who's sentient, who's omniscient, omnipotent, and all these sorts of things, okay? They deny God. I think that you and I worship the same God, but that you're confused about your relationship with God. You think you are that God, a manifestation of that God, or that your essence is God's essence, and that's not the case. But I've been there. I was where you're at, but I was what I called a hard solipsist. I didn't believe in my physical body or in the material universe or other people. I was just the disembodied mind of Buddha. It was like that Buddhist God. Um, but the atheist doesn't believe in any of that. The atheist believes that time and chance and matter just stumbled into these configurations, which happen to stumble conveniently into everything that we see around us now. I want to get your insight. So I'm not putting you on the spot anymore. You can breathe a sigh of relief. Now it's putting the atheists on the spot, and I want to hear your perspective. What leads to this way of thinking, the atheistic way of thinking? And how do you see that? And how do you have compassion on them? And how can you relate to them? And how are you able to see where they're going astray and where they're wrong? Just talk generally about that atheistic position.
hmm.
And were you ever an atheist? Because I was.
Probably, I would say that I was more of someone who didn't know but didn't deny. Like I don't believe, but I also feel like I have no proof, that agnostic kind of way of looking. I don't say it doesn't exist, but I also say it exists because I have not found it. I have no proof in that. I would say I was in that stage somewhere where I wasn't really saying, "No, nothing is real." Of that sort. God, it doesn't exist, and I'm just living here. And when I die, it's over. It's just like that is it. That was never the case. So I don't think I would classify in that terminology as an atheist. Um, I don't know I really feel like that when you ask me that question about how I treat people that I meet, I feel like forgive them for they know not what they do. So just more like that compassion aspect that even though people might not connect to any form of spirituality, that I can hold that space in that sense. I can be in that space of we are just here, and you don't have to believe in what I believe in. You know, it feels like maybe this is a ridiculous comparison, but I am vegan and I'm
Mm.
mostly with people who are not. And
Ah,
so I'm not
ah,
militant in the sense that I try to change their minds. I just am what I am, and I eat my food and I share my food, and I don't eat food from other people, but I'm okay with that, you know? So I think that is my relationship with atheism in a sense
ah,
that it's okay if you feel like that, but I have my beliefs, I have my worldview, and my worldview contains your ignorance in the sense that you are a part of it all, even though you
yeah.
feel like you're not.
Uh, how long you been vegan?
5 years now.
Okay.
So
And
I was vegetarian before, it just as a reference, so it wasn't just like omnivore vegan.
okay.
So,
Have you
yeah.
ever tasted meat of any kind?
I did, yeah. I ate a lot of meat when I was younger.
Oh, okay. And what are the reasons, the top three reasons why you're vegan?
The suffering is for me, the more I worked with myself, with nature, with people and animals, the more physical that suffering actually felt. So I just felt like I want to do my best in order to, yeah, in order to make sure that at least my choices don't inflict more suffering on those beings. That was the number one. And just a really short story. I was saving bees from drowning in salt water because they were drinking that water, and they were in the summertime just landing in that puddle, and then they were just like maybe getting caught in the water and drowning. I was saving really individual bees out of these puddles, and then I saw a documentary on mass honey industry productions, and I was just like so horrified that I'm trying to save these individual bees, and there is like honey productions where it just like escalated in that sense. That was, it's not, it's not a horrific story, but it's just like it felt something changed in me, and so that was my number one reason. That's the reason why I still am following that path, because it's just it's so difficult, you know, here in northern Norway. It's just I'm like that exotic person that is a vegan, and everybody, we're a fisher village here. So it's just like I'm the alien in a sense, and it's
You
difficult
look
in
healthy though.
terms
You
of
look very healthy.
yeah, I'm doing my best, you know.
What, if you don't mind me asking, how much do you weigh?
I think around 75, 74 kilos.
Do you know what that
So
is
I
in
lost
pounds?
it's no, it's probably I
74 kilos.
yeah.
Do you work out and everything, or
I do not at the moment. I do swim though.
163? I'm surprised. That's lower than I would have thought. That's lower than I
Yeah,
would
I'm
have
pretty
thought.
tall.
Y-
So
You're lanky then.
yeah. I lost a lot of body mass since I was an active athlete when I was younger, and so I had a lot of muscles, and every diet change also changed my physique, which is interesting to me, that I was this really bulky rower once
Oh,
who had like yeah, was so it's just for me, it's an interesting way of perceiving things change. I can let go of certain images of myself. That is just like what I think, even though I am a vegan, I feel like that's also tying into what you asked before. It's just passing,
uh,
it's all just roles and things and images, and they change, and I just experience different things in my life.
yeah. So I want to shift gears just a little bit, but it's connected. It is connected, and I want to talk about one of my favorite topics to bring up, which is ecology. The environment and all this sort of thing. And there's a dark side to that movement, obviously. An ego-driven political, just nonsense machine. But there's also a deep truth to the fact that we're supposed to steward the planet, and we're not supposed to inflict suffering on even a carrot, much less a cute little bunny rabbit or a cow. um I'm right there with you when it comes to not inflicting pain, and I'm against torture, all forms of torture, um and mistreatment. So, but when it comes to ecology, the environment and pollution, and we all want clean air, clean water, and nice food that's healthy and stuff like that. You're into the shamanistic thing, so I'm just wondering if you can talk about that angle, the ecological angle of shamanism and the connection with nature and the flora and fauna. What does all that? How does
Yeah.
that fit together?
I think that at least from my experience, that it is a little difficult for me also, because if I would say, if I look at the indigenous cultures, they all eat meat. Not all. I don't know that, but a lot of the indigenous cultures were living off of meat, and here it's reindeer a lot, or in the United States, it was buffalo or any other kind of game. So there is this, but the stewardship is part of that mindset, that being grateful for that you receive, also using all parts of it, and um not letting things go to waste. And so it feels like the stewardship is, in at least in that more, I don't like primitive the word, but it's what it's often called in these primitive spiritual directions, is what I feel is where there's a lot of connection to the earth, to taking care of the earth and all beings, in a sense. So that is what I feel is helping me making decisions. I do a lot of things that are have negative consequences. For example, if I step into a plane, I'm not as hardcore that I say I'm just walking everywhere, or I'm taking only my bike. So everything that I do, I'm sitting here with my computer and all these things that produce negative effects. I know that, but I'm also doing the best that I can with the resources that I have to limit that, and to make conscious choices in terms of what I consume, what I buy, as conscious as I can, without uh, being how do you call that? Kind of like whipping myself with it, you know?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, 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 yeah. You don't want to have guilt, unmerited guilt or some burdening yourself with the negativity that doesn't belong to you.
It's not the guilt, it's more that I can reduce more things that are part of my life that might have negative consequences, but then I strangle myself in a sense. It's not the guilt, it's more like I'm I don't feel that being a person like an Indian sadhu who is just like eating one bowl of rice in the morning and then is going off into the mountains meditating, that I feel like that is not my path. It's more like trying to find the balance of being in this world that I was born in this time that I was born in, and to steer it as with balance, that is how I see it.
Do you let's just say you had the opportunity just by magic or whatever to place yourself in a certain culture at a certain time in history. Is there sort of a golden age where you think it was, you know, a good life because there was balance and harmony and people were connected to each other and with their creator and to the earth? Can you think of a time and a place that appeals to you in that way that you could bring up sort
Mm.
of as an example?
I don't think that, at least not from any records that we have, there's always been, like, do you have probably a biblical term for that that I would say probably the only thing that comes to mind where this existed was in the Garden of Eden.
Ah.
So, and after
Ah.
that, it's just like that, the the world, that there is always been something in people where the world has always suffered. There's always been people who were connected, but also others who suffered. So I feel like there was probably maybe Atlantis or some other kind of places that I heard of that I don't know if they existed, where people say those were the high times of human societies that are lost in a way. I don't know that, but I don't know if I would say I wanted to live in a different time because it was better, because it feels like that's not real.
Ah. Yeah, yeah. Not to be negative, but the way the world's going, I mean, it seems like, um, you know, the Western industrial world, it's all about growth and technology and there's a dark dystopic sort of vision that a lot of people have, especially sci-fi writers, about the way things can go
Yeah.
south fast. When man is proud and has this hubris and is playing God, so you don't have any particular fears about that because of your spirituality, or what do you think about sort of bleak images of the future?
I think it's not looking too good. I agree absolutely, and there are times where I'm I'm not really afraid for myself or y- what is coming. It's more like it feels like it's sad to see that we're ruining our home, and that all these creatures are like dying out, and that we are turning the air into something that is almost unbreathable, and that you can't eat food anywhere that is not in some form maybe toxic, because we're just like in this in this ball, and it's just not possible to have isolated good food and crappy food somewhere else. Even ecological food is in some way tainted
Tainted.
by that. So I feel like it is it is it is part of that Weltschmerz, or that really that pain that I feel sometimes, that negative spiral where I get depressed and where I feel like I almost wanna bury myself and just like be done with it, and it like be done with this life. And because it feels too much to bear. That is one essence of this whole dystopia that you talk about, but it's not the anxious feeling of what is about to come, but it's more like that collective suffering that feels like is increasing to me.
Yeah.
And so I feel that whenever I get into that mood, and it's getting less because I catch it earlier. I just let go because I don't know where we're going. It's just it's kind of like a anticipation. Certain we're making certain choices, but we don't know where this is going. We can't, and that is where I'm stopping myself, because I don't help anybody if I get into this gloomy, negative state. And so I just do my best to make good choices to help people out who are suffering, who might have hard times. And so, in order to just spread some kind of presence, And I maybe one more sentence about this dystopian version of what is happening and what might be happening. It feels like if it is happening, I can't change it. Like I am just an individual, and the only thing that I can do is to stay here right now and to be with whatever comes up, and to stop myself whenever I get too much into the future, to come back and be here. That is how it feels to me.
Yeah, in thank you for that, by the way. But in my religion, excuse me, in my religion, if you were to willfully, consciously decide to kill yourself, you'd go to hell for all eternity and you can never get out. That's the worst case scenario. There are a lot of people that commit suicide and God's grace intervenes and they don't necessarily go to hell. But we're not allowed to kill ourselves in the Catholic faith, and I don't want to anyway, even though this life sucks. But and heaven's amazing. But I'm just wondering what your take is. Like, what would happen uh, if someone committed suicide? How do you see them? Just as food for the flowers, or their soul gets reincarnated, or what do you see happening? Any negative consequences for them personally, or just for their family and friends?
Absolutely negative consequences for people around these individuals. And I've really thought about this a lot and have been predisposed to suicide a lot in my life. So it's a question that feels like I I personally think, and there is where the concept of reincarnation and the Buddhist Hinduistic aspects maybe come into that. The things that I struggle with right now, the challenges that I have, the things that might be so much that I can't bear it, they will just wait for me the next time around. So it's not like I get out of it. It's not like I get into a good place and then everything is wonderful. And it's more like the challenge that I'm not able to face right now. It's like in a relationship. If I'm not able to have a relationship and go through certain challenges in the relationship, the next person that I meet, I get to the same problem that I had with
Uh,
the person before. So it feels like that for me personally, that
mm.
there are consequences, but it's not that I don't get a penalty for killing myself, or like something that adds to the karma or the thing that I have. It's just like I get to the same place and I have to work on it in another lifetime. That's how I see it. I don't know why, but it feels like that.
Yeah, it's a heavy subject, but it's sad when you think about it, how many people are doing it successfully and how many try and fail and how many are just thinking about it. It's dark. Another dark subject, and then we'll move on to something nice and light. Another dark subject is just how many children are starving to death all day, every day. Every is it every 7 seconds? Is that right? Or every 7 minutes? I can't remember. But anyway, it's too much. Like, I mean, it's just too much. Do we not care? Like, do we not care? Like, we're doing all kinds of creative projects and investing time and energy into all kinds of stuff, right? But I'm just wondering why we're not taking care of the starving children. Like, what's your idea for that?
I think that that is a symptom or mm, consequence of the neo-capitalistic world that we're living in, that in order to have these massive gains that some are harvesting, other people need to pay the price in certain terms. If you wanted to, as a global society, we could end world hunger right now. You said it. Don't we care? Some people care. It's just like it feels the system is, even if I would spend a lot of my energy, as a friend of mine does, to nonprofits in Africa, helping people who are starving, who are not educated, who don't have access to water, to sanitary access. So there are people who do work like that, and are supporting this. There's a lot of people who care. It's just like the system is rigged in a sense that th- it's a lever that is really hard to tip, because there's great benefits for a lot of people in this world, and so as long as these benefits persist, I feel it's very, very difficult to change it.
It's a systemic thing, but why is it, why in the human heart, what is it in the human heart that allows us to smile on, the next iPhone, the next flight to outer space, and all these wonderful accomplishments and building statues for heroes and whatever. We can smile on all that while the children are starving. I just looked it up. It's every 10 seconds a child dies of hunger. So, according to that, I mean, it's not the infallible answer, but that's give you a ballpark figure of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
What is it in the human heart that's allowing that, or is it just something that's not in any individual? It's in the group think. It's like, hey, well, we're comfortable, and we don't really think about how and why we're comfortable, and you would need to really take a sort of bird's eye view on all of society and the mechanisms of politics and economics in order to evaluate the connection between that and those who are suffering and starving. So is it are there individuals that have ill will towards these innocent children? Like, I mean, it seems unfathomable. Or is it, like I suggested, maybe just no one really is aware of it because no one's taking ownership of the big machine as it moves forward? What do you think?
I think when it comes to all of the problems, and starvation being one of them, and I mean we could look at so many different things that are happening in this moment right now that are heart-wrenching,
War.
and the list goes on. Like I said, that we could probably just come up with 20 things in the next 10 seconds. But I want to say is that I think the problem is that most people don't have a connection to their hearts. It's not that they don't care. It's just like, and I'm taking that from my own personal experience. I was numb. I was completely disconnected from my feelings. I just couldn't feel anything because I had so much pain inside that I just like shoved it away. And I think a lot of people consume so much, and the things that you talked about, the need for it's kind of like a mixture between being brainwashed and having difficulties connecting with our feelings, with our empathy, with our humanness, our brotherhood and sisterhood in a way. So I feel most of the people have really a hard time to getting in touch with that, because if we get in touch with that, we have to be willing to feel the pain that is in us, and that is the biggest thing that people want to avoid. That's why they do all these things, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. It's scary to think about that, from a Christian perspective. It's scary because, God will not be mocked, and what could be more mocking towards God than to let his little innocent children suffer and die? And that's from my Christian perspective, that there's going to be a judgment day, and I'm not pointing to the big bad elites that run the world, but it does say in the Bible that those who have power are going to be held to a higher standard. They're going to be held to account because they have a certain responsibility for those that they're supposed to be caring for. Today in politics, it's not about caring for people. It's about filling your coffers with money and power. It's like, vote for me. I want the power, not because I care about the constituents, but because it's a nice lifestyle, right? Like, I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit too cynical and exaggerating, and I'm sure there are good people in politics. Don't get me wrong. Maybe they start out very naive and innocent with ideals, and maybe they just get corrupted because power corrupts. But in any case, when you get right down to it, the bottom line is, yeah, people are making nice gestures, and there are non-governmental organizations. I just interviewed a guest who's helping in the sex trade to get girls out of the sex trade in the Philippines. So there are people, there are organizations, certainly there are churches and religious groups that are doing a lot of good. And we can look on the silver lining, but there's also that dark side of humanity, and those who have power, they do have a big burden of responsibility. And I often wonder about the politicians. It's hard to find a politician who is also a saint. You know what I mean? It's like really rare.
Hmm.
I can't think of one, but I think those are the ones that should be given the power. The power should be foisted on those saints who don't want the power. They don't want it, but it's foisted on them because they are the brightest and the best and the most humble and the most giving.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're already busy giving, but you foist this extra responsibility on them. That's my vision of heaven on earth, is where the people in power, they didn't want the power, they tried to run away from the power, but it was foisted on them by the community because they're the best man or woman for the job. So I'll let you comment on that, and then we'll start to wrap things up.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's maybe a silly example, but I saw Aquaman, and that is what happened there. He didn't
Oh,
want the responsibility,
all right.
and he said, "I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the leader. I just want to help people out, you know." But then these people who usually don't want the leadership positions, because you said they're humble, they're trying to help other people. They're more interested in others than themselves. But our system is not beneficent for those. Look at all those jobs, all those organizations that are taking care of people are usually underfunded. And it's like, it's not where the money is. The money is where individuals and corporations and all those leaders are. So I feel it is right. Those people who don't want the power usually are uh, not everyone, but I would say that a higher percentage or higher chance can be found that if you have someone who's would be a good leader, that they are not striving for that. They're not trying to be in that position because they just do their thing. They just help people out and they say, I'm here. I don't need that extra responsibility that you mentioned. I have enough responsibility as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, remind me again, which country are you right now?
I'm in Norway right now.
Norway, Norway. Okay. And so, is there any adjoining, do you have neighbor countries that have a physical land boundary with you?
We have Russia, Sweden, and Finland.
Okay.
So where I'm really a stone cast away from Russia and Finland.
Okay.
So and Sweden is not too far away either. So it's kind of like a four country
Okay. And you have those famous fjords on your
corner.
coast. Are they all along the coast, the fjords of Norway?
They pretty much, yeah, yeah.
And do the other neighboring countries, do they also have fjords? Why are they called the fjords of Norway, not the fjords of Finland and Sweden?
So Finland, as think, has no access to the Atlantic Ocean,
Oh,
and
oh, okay.
so Sweden also is on the for those who don't know of the on the east side of Norway, which is only the Baltic Sea, which is
Oh,
a kind of like Great Lakes is a
oh,
not an
I should
ocean.
look at the map now just so I know what you're talking
And
about here.
so Norway has access to the Atlantic Ocean, and the fjord is kind of like in Canada, where you have these inlets that are with ocean water.
Uh-huh.
And because the Atlantic has the Gulf Stream, which is warm, it's kind of like you have these warm water flows into, even if it's cold and snowy everywhere else in the wintertime, you see these. It's pretty much oftentimes not full of ice, these bays. And so the fjords is because it's an ocean inlet with mountains dropping down into the valley.
Oh, wow. I'm just looking at the map of Norway. It's incredible. It just wraps around the top of
Yeah.
Sweden and Finland, and then it just butts up against Russia. And I think if I were you, I'd be fighting to take that little peninsula, that Russian peninsula that reaches out. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you and Finland should sort of like grab that. That'd be fun. Because it looks like it
Yeah.
belongs to you guys more than to Russia.
It was part. This is a very,
Ah.
very fought over area where I live. So
Oh.
it was Norwegian at one point, and Finnish
Ah.
probably also. But
Oh.
Finland was also part of Russia, and so it's a big history here.
Wow. Either that or Russia should take the whole thing, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Just grab it all. Make the puzzle pieces look a bit better there. But I'm just kidding. They shouldn't take it. But anyway, I don't really care like who takes the land and the natural resources. But I wish we could all just get along and have peace. And it's just like disgusting, the war, and like we're torturing each other to get secrets. And it's like, what? It's like it is really disgusting. So I want to leave on a positive note. I've been really dwelling on the negative with you. I'm sorry about that. But maybe it's because you're from Norway. I just got that Norse uh, winter is dark, and maybe that's what I'm feeding off of.
Norse mythology with the
Odin.
whole gods, and yeah, with the
Yeah,
gods and the battles.
we
Yeah.
celebrate Odin every Wednesday. Odin, it's
Hmm.
Odin's Day. So yeah, that's kind of weird, but so I'd like you to leave us with something positive, a message of hope. I always do this anyway. So what would you say to anyone that's out there listening, given the fact that my listeners are very diverse? What would you
Yeah.
say?
I would say much as we talked about all these different things, spirituality, religion, dystopia, changing of the environment. These are all things that are happening, and I think it is important to stay realistic about like what is happening, but how can we reach out, how can we support someone like in our immediate surroundings, someone who's maybe having a hard day, just asking how are you doing, taking 5 minutes, maybe an hour to listen what they're going through. So just like as shit, even if we go down into the shithole with everything that happens, I think we can still connect with each other and support each other and agree on that we are all brothers and sisters, and that it is worth it just like reaching out, and even if it is sometimes hard to listen in. How do I feel? Do I have the capacity? Do I have the extra minute maybe to just to give? I don't need any money to give to people. I can just give my attention, give my awareness, and maybe just a little bit of love, like seeing that we are all in this together.
Absolutely. So great to meet you, my friend Martin. I hope you'll stay in touch. We can chat again in the future. I might take the summer off just because I've been doing a lot of podcasting, and I work full time, so it's been a lot.
Yeah,
My wife's getting
yeah.
annoyed with me how many podcasts I've been doing. But you're no longer on Podmatch, is that right? You're no longer on there.
No. Yeah, I was taking a break also
Okay.
with the change of the countries. I was doing
Okay.
podcasts and as guest and host, so I was just like
Oh,
taking a break. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, okay, okay. So you didn't have like a bad experience. You just wanted to slow down.
No, it
Okay.
just was a time to just do something else.
Very cool. I'm glad I got to meet you. And
Thank you.
anyway, we're in touch by email. So maybe this fall I'll reach out and see if you want to come and chat some more. Okay.
Yeah, alrighty. Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Have a
God bless
wonderful
you.
day.
You too. Thank you.
Yes, God bless
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.